destruction. We know they have active programs. There isn't any debate about it. It was thought to be the best intelligence available. How do you describe it when it turns out to be not accurate? Do you describe that as a failure of intelligence? I suppose some can not unfairly suggest that. Saddam Hussein may have been fearful that he would be discovered as having those weapons, removed them or destroyed them, but not wanted to tell anybody that he'd done so. To the president, I'm the senior person and I believe in accountability. Here's my resignation. It was in my handwriting. I didn't want to dictate it or have it typed up by somebody. I felt a very strong sense that something terrible had happened on my watch. He said, Don, I recognize how you feel about this, but that's not going to solve the problem. I testified before the House, testified before the Senate, tried to figure out how everything happened. When a ship runs aground, the captain of the ship's generally relieved. You don't relieve your presidents, and I couldn't find anyone that I thought it would be fair and responsible to pin the tail on. So I sat down and wrote a second letter of resignation. I still believe to this day that I was correct, and it would have been better. Better for the administration and the Department of Defense, and better for me, if the department could have started fresh with someone else in the leadership position.
Are you saying stuff just happens?
Well, we know that in every war there are things that evolve that hadn't been planned for or fully anticipated, and that things occur which shouldn't occur.
Wouldn't it have been better not to go there at all?
Well, I guess time will tell. Barack Obama opposed most of the structures that President George W. Bush put in place. Guantanamo Bay, the concept of indefinite detention, the Patriot Act, military commissions. Here we are, years later, and they're all still there. I think that kind of has to validate, to some extent, the decisions that were made by President George W. Bush. There are those who suggest today that the United States is in decline, that in fact we should allow someone else to contribute to the stability in the world. I happen to disagree with that, and I think that we need to provide leadership, and I think that leadership can make an enormous difference in what the world's going to look like in the 1990s and the year 2000. If you read the newspapers or watch television today, and you look at the polls, first they rank Gorbachev as the reason that these changes are occurring, and second they gave Reagan some credit, which is ridiculous. The credit belongs to Truman and Adenauer and to steadfastness over a period of 40 years. The credit goes to the investments of billions of dollars over a long, sustained period of time by people who were carped at and criticized and said, oh my goodness, you're warmongers. It went to the concept of peace through strength. And we need to understand how we got to where we are. Because going forward, we're going to have to make a judgment as to what role our country ought to play. And a passive role would be terribly dangerous. But who do we want to provide leadership in the world? Somebody else? My mind. I never knew what I was going to do next. The only thing I've ever volunteered for in my life, one was to go in the Navy, and the other was to run for Congress. The other was to get married. You look at being married to the same woman all those decades. When you're 20, 21, 22, what did you know? Both of us were young and unformed. How in the world can you be that lucky?
How did you propose?
Imperfectly. I was getting ready to leave for Pensacola. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I said to my folks, I'll be back. I'm going to go down and see Joyce. I asked her to marry me. I didn't get down on my knees. I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't want to get married, but I sure as heck didn't want her to marry anyone else.